Doing better now. I'm here. Greg Biffle. He drives that number 16 Red Cross Chevrolet.
Oh no.
Repeat.
Okay. 3M Ford Fusion. Or
Count
Red Cross
that.
Ford Fusion.
He drives the number 16 Red Cross Ford for Roush Fenway. And Greg, talk about your test out here at Las Vegas. Certainly this is a track where you've had success, and maybe just talk about some things that you guys worked through here this afternoon.
I'm willing to talk about anything but today's test, so any questions that you guys have, be more than happy to answer. But it was a pretty tough day for us.
Okay. We'll open up for questions then.
Lee, you had your hand up. Come on.
Go ahead, Lee.
Well, if you won nothing, qualifying or testing related, is your contract done yet?
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go to Jeff and then to Alan.
Jeff Club from USA Today. I don't know if you're serious about the test. If so, then don't answer this question. But if you are answering questions about the test, why do you think you guys are off? And you know, what are your concerns about? Because, you know, last year I think this was the weekend where you kind of made some gains on this day, and you were really enthusiastic going into the weekend. And what's going on?
Yeah, last year I was the fastest on Thursday. I was probably third fastest on Friday, 12th on Saturday, and I was 25th on Sunday. So this year I'm 34th on Thursday, and I'm hoping that I'm about 20th tomorrow and maybe 12th Saturday and win on Sunday. But that is about as good of an analogy I can give you on what is wrong with why our fastest car is 27th. I really honestly wish I had more to tell you about it, but we're just not getting a hold of the racetrack is about the best I can say.
Go to Alan, then we'll go to Jim. Go ahead, Alan.
Alan Cavana, NASCAR.com. How much importance there, or is there a long-term worry then with for the rest of the season if this test doesn't go well, only because there's so many intermediate tracks?
Yeah, and I think we recognized, you know, we talked over the winter or the end of last season that our intermediate track program really suffered, and that's been the flagship of Roush Fenway, is intermediate tracks. And actually, as a pleasant surprise, our short track program, which was always the toughest for us, actually picked up, and we made what I'm going to consider with a 16 team a fairly significant gain in our short track program. Richmond, Loudon, Martinsville, you know, a pretty good improvement. Phoenix finished third in the fall, so that was, you know, kind of light at the end of the tunnel. Our focus was, or at least mine was, let's get back on track on the intermediates, and, you know, then we'll be a threat. And it's painfully apparent that that's not, you know, and today is, I mean, it's a half a second, right? So we could find some things with the car that's not right, and these cars are really, really finicky. We know that. So that speed could just come up somewhere, and that's what we're hoping for.
Go to Jim, and then we'll go to Mark.
Jim Utter, Charlotte Observer. I don't recall, which is why I'm asking this question. Was the situation as disappointing at the Charlotte test in December, or do you feel like you didn't make some improvements like you would probably naturally do?
I felt like the Charlotte test I felt like the Charlotte test was kind of this same old hat. You know, we were in the mix. We had decent speed, and our car drove decent. So the Charlotte test, I don't think there was any real red flags or any worry for concern. And I'm not saying there is yet, but obviously, you know, we just have to reformulate, you know, new formula on what we have right now. So and like I said, these cars are super, super finicky. So it could be a small spring combination. I know one thing that last year, 2 years ago, I was at Michigan, and I was horrible, like couldn't make a lap horrible. And we looked at Matt's setup, and he had a little bit different rear spring combination. We said, okay, tomorrow we're going to start with that. We were the fastest car on both practices on Saturday and won the race with one spring change. So, you know, that gives us, you know, some insight on we got to pick that direction because we don't have a guy that's very fast to take a look at and say, hey, what do they have? Now, we did recognize last week we weren't very fast in race trim, went to Q trim, went to the top of the board, and were 6th in both of the qualifying sessions and had a pretty fast car. 21 car is 3rd on the board in Q trim. So is there some formula between qualifying and race trim that's giving us a little fuss right now? So, and actually we learned a little bit qualifying trim last week and applied that to race trim. So maybe that's the same thing that's going to happen here.
Go ahead, Mark.
Mark Anderson, Las Vegas Free Journal. With tomorrow being the first 3-segment qualifying, did the qualifying at Phoenix take some of the mystery out of it, or because it's 3 segments, is there still a lot to learn?
I think it took some mystery out of it. Really, it did for us. Now, I guess I might back up a little bit in that statement because the temperature of the engine is a big deal, and this being 1.5 miles is significantly different than a 1 mile on throttle time and run time on the engine. So this is a much bigger track, and so you got to make 3 runs. A minimum of 3 runs with, having to cool the engine down enough to be able to do that with just a fan. So that could be challenging, especially if a guy wants to go out and try and better his lap, right? Like we saw last week happen, guys would go out and they're able to run a little bit, squeak out a little faster lap. Well, if that's the case, then you're really dead for the next session because you're not going to get cool enough till then. So it's probably going to be a mystery tomorrow on how all that works out. But last week is pretty uneventful for us. We went and we were 2nd quick and then got bumped back to 6th, and then the same thing happened on the 2nd session for us. So it was we were in a good position last week, and we'll have to wait and see tomorrow what that brings. But I feel pretty good that Trevor's that fast in race trim, and obviously or Q trim. Obviously, there's only a handful of cars. I think only maybe 12, 15 cars made Q runs today. So, when everybody does it, then it might be a different story.
Any other questions for Greg? Well, Greg, thanks for coming in. And,
Thank you, guys.
I got a feeling